Welcome to a parenting podcast by Meri Sehat. Meri Sehat पाकिस्तान का पहला AI-powered healthcare platform है. They have launched a healthcare website जो आपको medical or wellness articles 5 different languages में provide कर रहे हैं. Along with that, they've launched an app जिसमें एक new technology, बहुत innovative technology embedded है, जिसके through आप अपने vitals जो हैं किसी भी वक्त check कर सकते हैं. All you need is a smartphone. आज की जो conversation है वो focused है on the decision to become a parent in 2023. मेरा नाम मदीहा सैयद है और मैं मेरी सेहत की lifestyle and wellness editor हूँ. I've also chosen to be child-free. क्या मेरे ऊपर बच्चे पैदा करने का pressure है? जी, बहुत ज़्यादा. But there's a lot that scares me about the world today. Climate change है, माहौलियाती तब्दीली, overpopulation, बढ़ती हुई महंगाई, the state of the world economy. एक दुनिया जो आपके सामने तबाह हो रही है, उसमें आप एक बच्चा कैसे ला सकते हैं? So that's my biggest issue. और मेरे साथ यहाँ पे 2 individuals हैं. You can call them reckless, you can call them brave, but they've each chosen to bring a child into this world. There's Abdullah Tahir. He's Meri Sehat's brand and marketing manager, a brand consultant, an avid follower of podcasts, and a social media aficionado. इनकी शादी को 5 साल हो चुके हैं और इनकी एक बहुत ही क्यूट और बहुत अमेजिंग 4-year-old daughter है. यहाँ पे डॉक्टर मरियम चुगताई है. She's a qualified dentist, a makeup artist, entrepreneur, and medical writer. She's also been married for almost 3.5 years, and her adorable son is about 2.5 years old. I met him once, and I don't know how she leaves him at home every day. He's so cute. So yeah, I just wanted to start off by asking you guys, what were you thinking? आप क्या सोच रहे थे या आप सोच नहीं रहे थे when you decided to have kids, or did you decide it, or did it happen? I mean, what was the?
I think for us it was more like it was a decision. Obviously, it didn't happen on accident or anything. We decided because there were various reasons, but primarily it was because we were so happy together that we wanted to bring that happiness to a child of ours into this world. That's why we decided, and that was primarily the primary reason for us doing that.
Mariam, what about you?
So with me is I've always wanted to be a young mom. I've always wanted to be energetic in raising my child, and I didn't want to wait for too long. And we were in the right place. We were financially, emotionally strong, and so we decided to have a kid. But again, nothing prepares you for it. It always hits you later after you've had the kid how hard it can actually be.
लेकिन again climate change है, overpopulation है, दुनिया खत्म हो रही है, साइंसदान हमें बता के थक गए हैं.
It's kind of like their problem now. So it's not really, but so I think when it comes to all of that, you can't really predict the future when it comes to all of those things. We've been above the CO2 emission levels for a long time, but now we've gotten new reports that it's going down drastically. So you don't really know.
And you've read those reports.
Yeah, I have.
I love how आप सारी अच्छी वाली reports पढ़ रहे
हैं. So I read the one that had that really bad number that we've already gone past. We should have stopped emitting those CO2 emissions, I think, about 4 years ago. But now what we've done is that we've come up with technologies that's basically going to reverse it. So it's more about you can say how we're advancing as a species. Maybe we've really screwed up the planet, but we're also trying to do a few things. We're trying to go coal free, oil free, and all of that. So I think it's more about we might have a chance of having everything be better because we're slowly starting to realize we can't really sustain this. So that is a factor. But for me, it was not. It was a little more transcendent than just thinking कि यार हाँ ठीक है अपने जो है वो climate change आ रहा है, दुनिया ने तबाह हो जाना, 2012 आया, वो उसमें भी सब तबाही होनी थी and all of that. But it was also more of a very personal decision rather than it being something that बहुत सारी चीज़ें सोची गई, हर एक चीज़ का जायज़ा लिया गया, सोचा गया कि यार exactly सही time है, financially भी वो भी सारी चीज़ें. I think that complicates it by a lot.
So you're saying आंखें बंद करो और बस करो?
Not really. मतलब you should always be looking at where you are in life and what your emotional, financial situation is, obviously. But you can't. There's no perfect time to do this or to make that decision. There's never going to be a perfect time, because every time you overthink it and then you'll be like, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And then you're going to, keep on extending that till maybe a time when it becomes like a possibility, a non-possibility actually.
Yes. So Marium, do you share any of my anxieties?
I do actually. So after having a son, I realized that, there's a lot of things about parenthood that we were not told and we were not educated about, and how tough it can be and how much of yourself you have to pour out, right? So a lot of parents, what I'm noticing is, are one and done. And I really support that decision. And a lot of parents are choosing not to have kids either. And I believe it's everyone's own decision. But again, we would leave more mindful and educated individuals for the world later on. It's not like we're going to let them loose and destroy everything. So whatever you're saying is legit. Yes, the world is.
When you say one and done, आपका मतलब ये है कि एक बच्चे के बाद they're done. They're saying that's enough for us.
Yeah, some people are content with that. Even though societal pressures are insane for having a second child, people think that, they put pressure on you कि आपका बच्चा जो है वो इतने उसमें मसले होंगे क्योंकि उसके पास sibling नहीं है, वो social anxiety होगी, वो he won't be socially normal, and I don't take that pressure upon me.
You also at the moment अभी आपके पास एक ही है.
Yes, अभी एक ही है. अभी तक that's the plan so far. But मुझे ना से वो याद आ गई. It's like a cyclical thing. मतलब अगर I remember when I was way younger, हमें टीवी पे न्यूज़ पे वगैरह एक मुहिम चली थी कि बच्चे दो ही अच्छे, because we had like this population boom. Exactly. So when we had that population boom, so then we had even our people, आप कह लें our older generation saying, so कि यार हाँ ठीक है, 2 is a good number, 3 चलो हो गया, but not like 6-7 पूरी पाकिस्तान टीम तो नहीं आपने बनानी ना. So वो unfortunately हर कोई follow नहीं कर रहा. So it's like a cyclical thing. आपको कभी pressure होता है, कभी वो pressure आहिस्ता कम हो जाता है. It also again depends on the economic situation of the country. It used to be a lot better पहले, तो तब इतना ज़्यादा नहीं इसको समझा जाता था issue. But now that it's that we're going through economic downturn, so obviously it's also considered to be pressure वो होता है, but उतना ज़्यादा नहीं. अब I feel आ रहा. Even your parents and your grandparents understand that it's very unsustainable to have like 5 kids right off the bat, and then for just one person to make the money be the breadwinner and support all of them.
और अगर आप उसको एक अच्छी परवरिश देना चाहते हैं, एक अच्छी जिंदगी देना चाहते हैं,
ऐसे है.
पल तो जाएंगे, but would you be able to pay attention to them?
And I think parenting styles have changed so much from how our parents raised us. The standards have increased. Like our parents, they would think बस छत दे दी, हमने पढ़ाई दे दी, खाना दे दिया, now that's it. That child doesn't need anything else. A lot of old school people still think that way. But we're more mindful in how we're raising our kids, and I think we're more emotionally involved, and I think that takes a much more effort in parenting.
मैं पूछने वाली थी, क्या आपके ऊपर ज़्यादा pressure है parenting का?
बिल्कुल, because आजकल mental health issues बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, and social media exposure बहुत ज़्यादा है, depression बहुत ज़्यादा है, so we have to be, and even in little babies and little toddlers, you have to be so careful about these traits and how your parenting can affect your child's development. So developmental delays and all this stuff. So there isn't enough in Pakistan, I feel, training for parents, and there should be. So the way Europe does it, they have parenting classes, and
I have visions of my mom, my puppo, everyone saying कि हम सबने पाले हैं, ऐसी क्या बड़ी बात है. So Abdullah, do you agree with her? Is that
I do agree with her. I feel like a lot of the reasons why we're trying to, or this generation's trying to be better parents, is not that because हमारे parents अच्छे नहीं थे, but it's because of the overall exposure, the information, or the depth of information that we have right now. Like we have about 50, go to YouTube, find like 50 videos of how to raise your children so that they don't have anxiety. Our parents do not know that. Our parents do not even realize that their kids were going through like depression, anxiety, ये सब चीजें. And most of the times if they did, they weren't capable enough, उस तरीके से अकेले equipped enough to actually do something about it. So it's not, I think, more on them. It's just more on how fast access to education, access to knowledge, not really education, knowledge has become. Anybody can do, like a quick Google search and a YouTube search and then become an expert in something. So that in itself has made us more mindful, and also the experience of how we were raised, somewhat without blaming the parents and everything. That has also played a key role in us trying to do a lot of things that should not have been done. Uska opposite kare, and we do the right thing towards being present and stuff like that.
They did the best with the knowledge they had.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. We're doing the best with the knowledge we have.
Do you feel like as grandparents, we bilkul hi badal jate hain? Because I see my mother and her approach to my nieces and nephews is so different. हमारे साथ इतनी सख्त थी और उनके साथ इतने प्यार से, and I'm like, where was that when we were kids? I mean, she knows better now as well, but yeah, it changed with time.
It definitely does. Like my wife's mother was a very strict mother. I'm not sure how happy she'll be. I'm saying this on on a podcast, but she was. But now when I see how she behaves with my 4-year-old daughter, it is like, I can't believe that it's, or even she can't believe it's the same woman, because and I think it's more like उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये हो जाती है कि यार अब इसके पेरेंट्स हैं ना, जो सख्ती करनी है उन्होंने करनी है, हम क्यों नहीं बिगाड़ते हैं इनको.
It's the same thing my mother said once.
Exactly. So they're like, यार हमने अपनी जो हिस्से की स्ट्रिक्टनेस थी वो आप पे दिखा दी है. Now for them, you need to be the ones जो कि उनको उस तरीके से गाइड करें, and we're the ones who can spoil them.
अच्छा, एक चीज़ जो मैं मरियम से बात कर रही थी वो ये थी कि मैंने एक आर्टिकल पढ़ा था जिसमें लिखा था कि जो पेरेंट्स हैं ना वो ज़्यादा इन्वेस्टेड होते हैं into this world, and they're more invested in finding solutions to issues that we are facing currently. मैं अपनी अम्मी के साथ ही देखती हूँ. My mom now cares very much about climate change, क्योंकि उनको ये होता है कि जो मेरे जो grandchildren हैं उनके लिए किस तरह की दुनिया जो है हम छोड़ के जा रहे हैं. And that is something that gives her a lot of anxiety. With all the information जो आपके पास है about parenting, the issues that can affect your children, the world and everything, does that make you anxious? Does that keep you up at night? क्या आप सो पाती हैं आराम से?
Absolutely. I mean, not just about climate change. I think it's about law and order and crime rate. Inappropriate exposure to social media. I mean, my 2.5-year-old is using YouTube. He's watching his cartoons, and then he can swipe into any kind of video, right? So that thing gives me more anxiety. So
the internet gives you a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
The screens give you a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
I think it's, and again, it's like a natural evolution to how kids are being parented now. हमारे time पे was more like because your parents cannot, like even us, we can't give our 100% of our attention to a child every day. So हमारे टाइम पे तो ये होता था यार जाओ ठीक है गार्डन है ना, जाओ उसमें अपने आप से जो करना है, अपने आप को तोड़ना है, गिरना है, फेंकना है, जो मर्जी करना है करो वहाँ जाके. Leave us alone for 3 से 6 का जो टाइम है ना वो हमारा टाइम है. Please leave us alone, do whatever the hell you want to do, and then come back and then we'll give you time. So I think वो चीज़ थोड़ी सी replace होगी with screens. But इसके अंदर again वही चीज़ है कि it's how you limit exposure to all of that stuff. It's very important, because if you have like a routine with your kid, if you're setting up like a 1 hour or a 2 hour time slot of screen time, and if you stick to it, and if you're always monitoring what they're watching, they're not watching something inappropriate, so you can kind of save them from all of the other stuff that's available on the internet. But it's inevitable, they'll obviously find that at some age, but as much as you can protect them, I think that's what you can do. You can't really have like a child who does not have access to all of these things, because that in itself creates बहुत सारे complexes उनके अंदर when they go to school, when they go to their cousins and all of that, and they see कि सबके पास iPads हैं, phones हैं, सब अपनी चीजें देख रहे हैं, and you're the only one who doesn't have access to it. That can be problematic more than having an access to it can be.
Plus अभी जो ये कोविड गुजरा है उसमें a lot of जो teaching थी वो ऑनलाइन हो गई थी, and I saw with my sisters, she had to buy laptops for her 3-year-old and her 4-year-old, and then she had to find a laptop for herself because हर क्लास को फिर पेरेंट को भी मॉनिटर करना होता था from a different room.
Yeah.
And so they had to sit in front of that screen as well. So I think inevitable है, but I think what Mariam is concerned about is the accidents that can happen.
Definitely.
And
definitely, it's and I 100% agree to the anxiety. There are a lot of anxiety related scenarios that always are running through your mind when your kid is especially not with you. So one of the मेरा ultra paranoid instinct है ना वो ये होता है कि whenever I go outside I need to have a direct sight to my kid. मतलब I need them to be in my sight, and if I have to shout for it, if I have to like उनको डांटना and all of that, I do that. But it's ये कहने के थोड़े सा ना, it keeps me, even though it makes the kid very anxious and I can see it, but it keeps me थोड़ा सा mentally अकेले. Plus, in our family, we'd have a lot of cases of कि अच्छा बचपन में तुम भी घूम गए थे, अच्छा तुम भी घूम गए थे, तुम भी घूम गए थे, मिल गए थे ना, but we don't really know कौन कौन नहीं मिला, वो बताते थोड़ी हैं. So that really, you know, and overall there are obviously other issues as well. There's like very dark topics like pedophilia, stuff like that. You never really know who, and the amount of stuff that you hear from people. And stuff that was done to them when they were kids by even sometimes
relatives.
very close relatives, that makes you very very paranoid, more so than you know what's going to happen in the future, climate change. वो सारी चीज़ों से ज़्यादा ये चीज़ें कुछ ऐसी हैं जो कि आपको ज़्यादा डराती हैं और आपको you always on the lookout.
जो हमारी पेरेंट्स की जनरेशन थी, they would make you meet the relatives despite you not liking it. So with what I'm doing differently with my kid is now, if he doesn't want to hug somebody, I don't force him. I tell him to, you know, उसकी अपनी boundaries हैं, वो अभी से अपनी body को respect करेगा, कोई entitled नहीं feel करेगा उसकी body पे.
बिल्कुल
ताकि उसको अपनी पता हो, respect हो.
उसको no कहना आता हो,
No कहना.
Yes, and it's I am a strong advocate of actually, you know, not revealing too much, but giving them the autonomy to understand कि क्या चीज़ें हैं जो कि inappropriate है. If you point it out to them at a very early age, like at age 2, I started, you know, teaching my daughter that this is inappropriate, somebody should not be doing this, not even, you know, a friend or a relative, stranger, तो बहुत दूर की बात है, कोई भी, nobody is supposed to, you know, do this. There's only one person, your mom, that can, you know, do that, change clothes and all of that. I think it's very important for you to classify it for them early on, and then keep on repeating it, because children are very innocent. And they're very trusting, especially with my daughter. She's, you know, she's very, very friendly. So I'm always on the lookout and, you know, telling her that you're not supposed to be doing this, you're not supposed to be doing this. As Marium said, we should be teaching them the boundaries, especially when it comes to their own bodies.
But I think you've done a good job, because I remember she came to the office once and she really needed to go to the bathroom. And all of us women offered that she goes well, and I'm sure you wouldn't have a problem with it, but she insisted that no, it can only be a parent that can take her. She held it together.
Yes, I know. So I think it's very important we do that with everyone, with boys, with girls. It's equally important to do that.
Do you guys have, like you mentioned, you had that conversation with your child? I mean, have you had the good touch, bad touch conversation?
A little bit of it.
Did your parents ever, कबीर ने बात की आपसे इस बारे में कि क्या सही है, क्या गलत है?
मेरे parents ने, no, that generation was not the type to discuss this stuff with us. They'd just expect, you know, if there's natural changes happening in someone's body, they'll realize it themselves. Then they just left it to us to
I
find
think most
out
of the information, because we
Uh-huh.
didn't even have the internet back then. I
Yeah.
think most of that information we got from our friends or like cousins and all of that.
Yeah.
I highly doubt any parent of that upcoming generation was open to or was comfortable enough to talk to, like even code words में भी बात नहीं होती थी. It was like a taboo conversation. Even if it was just about being, you know, inappropriate, good touch, bad touch वाली भी कोई conversation होती नहीं थी. And I think it was also partially because there were a lot more trusting back then of people. I don't trust anybody outside of my family उस तरीके से अगर देखा जाए तो.
I think एक होती है difficult conversations, वो करनी नहीं आती है, उसका art नहीं आता है. And I think the maximum we were ever taught was कि this is shameful. This part of your body is shameful.
Yeah.
That is it. लेकिन इसके आगे के, you know, good and bad touch क्या है, ये नहीं बताया गया था. मैं मरीम से बात कर रही थी कि even when, you know, like when we got our first period, and if we went to our mom and said, Mom, we've gotten our first period, and then instead of telling us more, she'd be like, अच्छा अपनी बहन से बात करो, अपनी बड़ी बहन से बात करो. इस बारे में भी हमें नहीं ज़्यादा, you know, बता सकती थी. तो ये है. लेकिन मैं अपनी बहनों को अब देखती हूँ जो इस जनरेशन की हैं, और मैं देखती हूँ कि उनके पास अगेन इंटरनेट एक्सेस है, you know, पेरेंटिंग एप्स आ गए हैं, तो वो अपने बच्चों के साथ बहुत क्लियर हैं. And like you said, 2 years की एज से, मेरी बहन ने भी 2 years की एज से शुरू कर दिया था कि, you know, ये good है, ये bad है, you can come to mama for this. पूरी drills होती थी. And even when it came to like her having another child, उसने कभी छुपाया नहीं अपने बेटे से कि you know she was like देखो बेबी यहाँ पर है, हम हॉस्पिटल जाएंगे, you know doctor will give mama baby, सब कुछ सिखाया हुआ था. जबकि I remember in our time it was like you would see
but you couldn't talk about it.
But you couldn't talk about it. You had to pretend
you grew up confused.
Yeah.
Where did it go? Where did it come from?
So
I actually lived for 5 years in the UK, and in the 5th grade we had a sex ed class in our school, and being the only desi kid in the class, my parents sat me out of it. So that just comes to show how nervous they are around that topic.
क्या सिखा रहे थे उसमें? क्या what do they teach in?
They were teaching the body organs, you know, how a normal organ should look and what. Everything, normal sex education, and my entire class took it.
But what is normal sex education? Because you say sex education, 5-year-old. I think most days.
No, not 5-year-old. 5th grade.
Oh, 5th grade. Okay, 10.
I think I was 9.
But फिर भी, like, देखो बाहर का 10 साल का बच्चा ना पाकिस्तान का 5 साल का बच्चा होता है. So in terms of this information, so yeah.
So यही होता है. I'm sure I sat out of it, so I wouldn't know what they taught.
I think it's more like बाहर का 10 साल का जो बच्चा है ना, यहाँ के 20-year-old के मुकाबले में होता है, because it's just it's a sad thing, because एक बड़ा ना गलत misconception है कि if you're talking about all of this stuff, it's going to lead you to being, you know,
फिर वो करना चाहेंगे.
Yeah.
If they know तो फिर वो करना चाहेंगे.
उनको नहीं पता होगा तो वो नहीं करेंगे. That which is absolutely wrong.
It makes no sense. मतलब if नहीं भी पता होता तो you're more curious to know about stuff that you don't really know about. So
आप दोनों ने सोचा कि किस उम्र में बताएंगे? अब बताएंगे नहीं बताएंगे? ये conversation होगी कि नहीं होगी?
Yes, absolutely. I think very early on I would prefer at the age of 6. It depends on how much my child's vocabulary has improved till then. Would he even understand what I'm saying? I would want to do it very young, because see, in our generation we were exposed to explicit stuff at an older age. Our kids are going to be exposed at a much younger age, because every child has gadgets at school. I've tutored kids and I know they knew about it, and they were 8th graders, 7th
It's like
graders.
a very आपके लिए millennial thing to say, but वो होता है ना कि हम कहते थे हमारे ज़माने में when we were in like O levels, so तब हमें जो बातें पता होती थी अब जाके 6th graders को पता होती हैं, and all of that. It's a very millennial thing to say, but it's true. Because they have again more access to information, and it's इतना ज़्यादा abundance है information कि if you don't intervene पहले and let them know, they'll find out eventually, and how they find out or what they find out is not something then that you can control. So this is one of the reasons why there's like a बहुत ज़्यादा endemic of children not knowing the right things to know, is because the information that they're getting is from all of these dirty sites and all of that.
लेकिन बहुत सारे parents ये भी कहते हैं कि चलो उनको पता ही चल जाएगा अपने दोस्तों से, तो इसमें क्या big deal है?
But then again, it's you're not really sure कि आपके दोस्त इस बारे में बात करते हैं कि नहीं करते. It's not like every friend circle is just like everybody sitting around and हाँ यार इसके बारे में बताओ, चलो आज इसके बारे में बात करते हैं. It's not necessary, and I might be wrong, but I think specifically for women, it's not really, I think, a topic that is approached so much in conversation. At least school level पे तो
I mean, I don't know if Marium and I want to tell you our secrets. लेकिन I think for me back in school, I'm not sure how it was for Marium. It was more focused on romance. So as opposed to like the physicalities of it. It was more about like, you know, cute hair, आगे जाके, you know, you could envision the future.
But you know, I mean, as adults, we all have been exposed to certain videos at, you know, a certain point in our life. Usually कॉलेज में जाके बच्चों को एक्सपोजर होता है, बट आई बिलीव सेक्स एड बहुत जल्दी होना चाहिए. सेक्स एड प्रॉपर होना चाहिए. इट शुड बी अबाउट सेफ सेक्स, कंसेंशुअल. इट शुड बी, देयर शुड बी रिलीजियस बैकिंग, देयर शुड बी कल्चरल बैकिंग, बिकॉज आपका बच्चा अगर इस सबसे पहले एक सेक्सुअल वीडियो पे पहुंच गया, उसको ये कल्चरल और ये रिलीजियस चीजें कुछ नहीं पता होंगी. He's gonna think that's what sex is, even though it's not. And he's gonna think, because if he's a guy, he's gonna look at that video, he's gonna be like, this is me. He's gonna take inspiration from that. This is how I'm supposed to be. This is how things are done. It's really difficult to unlearn that. So
I mean,
things are taken forward.
If I channel my traditional Pakistani older parent, तो मैं तो बस ये कहूँगी कि ये bad है, और उसको बस ये बताना है कि ये गलत है.
बस करना ही नहीं
आगे कुछ करना ही नहीं है. हम तो करते ही नहीं है. पाकिस्तान में मैजिक से सब लोग, you know, हो जाता है and everything. तो when you said कि काफी young age में शुरू करना चाहिए, how young are you saying? 10?
Younger, I feel 6 to 8. If again, I'm saying if my kid has that vocabulary, every parent knows their child, and if they think that they're intellectually,
at that point
groomed enough to
in their
know
life.
that.
Obviously, उस वक्त के लिए like the language you use will be a little different, नहीं? थोड़ी सी.
So from what I've learned about this from a few articles that I've read is that you're not supposed to censor anything. You are supposed to name organs as they are.
But हमारे मुल्क में, and I'm saying you probably know this as well. यहाँ पे adults जो हैं वो proper words नहीं use कर पाते हैं. ठीक है,
वो गलत है ना.
They feel so much shame. इतना शर्म उनको महसूस होती है. और ये हमें पता like this is what we observed जब अभी breast cancer awareness पे campaigns चले थे और इतनी बड़ी hue and cry create हुई थी. सिर्फ छाती का कैंसर के जो टर्म है वो आपके इस्तेमाल होने पे there was a lot of problems that a lot of people
even
had.
a mosque refused to
exactly
let that be
exactly so हमारे adults जो है वो terms इस्तेमाल नहीं कर पाते उनको उनको कह नहीं पाते हैं तो हम बच्चों से क्या expect कर सकते हैं हम उनको कैसे सिखाएंगे ये सब again breast cancer पे I remember कि there was a popular clothing brand उन्होंने campaign चलाई थी जिसमें वो दिखाना चाह रहे थे कि how do you check yourself and उसमें जो औरतों के comments थे वो यही था कि मैंने तो अपने आप को देखा तक नहीं है मैं अपने आप को हाथ भी नहीं लगा सकती इस तरह से तो I mean there's so much shame that exists in our world. How do you said
I just
don't
have one
censor
thing.
it. How do you get to
said that to somebody, a parent, that if you're going to be shy and shameful in educating your child about sex, if Allah na kare he's ever met with a predator, they're not going to be shy or shameful, right? So that you're going to need to prepare your child for that situation. If you're going to censor everything, they wouldn't know. They'd be confused. And that is the thing with predators. They groom you first. They don't just attack you. They groom you. They build your trust. You think of them as someone who loves you.
Yeah.
And then you end up trusting them. You think whatever they're saying is correct. So
and then if you don't really teach your children what they possibly could do and how that's inappropriate, that's when they get confused and that's when they most of the times let it happen.
Yes.
It's not like they're doing it on purpose. It's more like they don't really even know it's inappropriate, that shouldn't be happening. So
and a lot of kids well into adulthood find out that they've been wrong. They don't even realize it for most of their teenage life कि हमारे साथ गलत हुआ.
ऐसे
Do you think 6 is a good age?
6, 7. Again, I think it's more about where you believe your child is intellectually, and if you feel like they're able to understand it, the earlier you can do it, the better.
Mariam, you mentioned एक और चीज़ कि you said कि यहाँ पे जो है ना parenting classes होनी चाहिए. तो
बिल्कुल, there are so many parents unleashing their own childhood issues on their kids, and I think they need to be addressed. If a few years ago, if I would have seen a father slapping their kid, I would have really judged him. Why did he have kids and galat kar raha hai, But now that I'm more mindful and I'm a parent myself, I feel sorry for the guy. I feel like he needs help. Poor thing. What must be going in his mind to be able to inflict pain on your own child?
What's your rule of hitting a kid by the
No,
way?
I believe it shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be done at all.
Same.
Yeah. So
but traditional parents पर ये कहेंगे ना कि हम उनको control कैसे करें, हम उनको discipline कैसे करें, तो अब क्या like what are the techniques you guys use?
वो जो एक battle of the egos हो जाता है ना, इसलिए वो एक ही चीज़ बोलते हैं. अगर एक बच्चा आपकी बात नहीं मान रहा, आपकी ego hurt हो जाती है. आप instantly control लेना चाह रहे होते हैं. Cool yourself down, go to the other room, take 5 minutes off, come back, address the situation. Don't like lash out, don't end up hitting your child out of anger. That's what I believe.
I think if you're going to insult your child's intelligence, तो वो फिर obviously lash out करते हैं. If your child's picking up a glass and asking them not to pick it up, if you don't explain to them why it's wrong for them to pick up the glass at that particular moment, of course they're going to lash out. They're going to cry, they're going to scream, they want to hit you, stuff like that. अगर आप उनको explain करेंगे ना, तो maybe they won't stop at that time, but they will understand it and they might not do it the next time. So ये मैंने तो बहुत successfully ये चीज़ जो है वो apply की है जहाँ पे भी whenever I'm asking my daughter to not do something, I make sure I explain as to why she shouldn't be doing it. These are the consequences of this happening. If you do it, तो ये हो जाएगा, अब तुम्हारी मर्जी है. तुमने करना है करो, नहीं करना ना करो. मैं तुम्हें सजेस्ट करूँगा कि मत करो. And about 80% of the times she doesn't do it. But then she's like a 4-year-old, obviously 20% of the time she does it. But then she understands it, she falls down, she picks herself back up, she understands कि नहीं करना. So it's kind of like थोड़ा सा उन पे भी आपको छोड़ना होता है. Let them do make a few of those mistakes.
I also let natural consequences be the teacher for my kid. Even though my husband thinks I'm really cruel for that, but I'm like, let him do it. he's gonna get hurt in front of me, right? He's not unsupervised. एक बार उसको लगे कि वो अगली बार करेगा ही नहीं. I mean, like, I had a plate of noodles and he kept, like, I had to hold him back कि गरम है, मत उसमें हाथ लगाओ. So he was putting his finger and I let him touch it from the side and उसको जला, उंगली थोड़ी सी जली. But I knew if I would have left the room, उसको रोक के वो पूरा हाथ डाल देता.
That's
Right?
true.
So behind your back, kids are gonna do these things if you don't explain them to them.
I think it's very another thing is very important to do is to co-parent and not just be like I'm the alpha parent and that's like the beta parent. इस तरह नहीं करना चाहिए बिल्कुल भी. If your wife, for example, is making a decision कि ये specific चीज़ करनी है, yeah, this is the right thing to do. I don't think as a husband you should be interfering in that.
Absolutely.
Because that takes away the power from the parent and it gives it back to the child. And then वो चीज़ जो है वो फिर दोबारा रिपीट होती है.
फिर डिवाइड एंड रूल होता है.
बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाता है.
जैसे बच्चे को पता है कि पेरेंट्स यूनाइटेड नहीं है.
ऐसे ही है. वो जो होता है ना कि फिर आप परमिशन आपने लेनी होती है तो फिर आप फादर के पास जाते हो कहते हो कि मामा ने कह दिया यस और मामा के पास जाते हो कहते हैं पापा ने कह दिया यस. सो वो वाली हरकतें होती हैं फिर. बट यू शुड डेफिनेटली नॉट इंटरवीन एंड नॉट जस्ट विद लाइक husband wife. I think people outside of that a circle should also definitely not be interfering.
Oh, that is we're a long way from not letting that happen. And
yes.
Desi people have.
They have no boundaries.
Even non-parents are like come and teach us things that
definitely.
They think we're stupid.
क्यों इसको कुछ कह रहे हो भाई? क्यों मार रहे हैं? किस तरह डांट क्यों रहे हो? पता नहीं है तुम्हें ये वो. And they don't really understand that that's really damaging to the kid because they then as she mentioned कि वो उनको फिर consequences समझ नहीं आते and then they're like they do it the next time. You're not there, they're not there. जो उस टाइम मना कर रहे थे उनको कह रही है ना करो and then bad things happen. So this is one rule that I've kept with everyone in my family. I don't care if somebody does not like it, but if I'm telling my kid to do something, if my wife is telling my kid to do something, we make sure that nobody interferes.
So they can just run off to a grandparent, nani.
चले जाएं, but they can't really. They shouldn't be at a liberty to say कि यार ये जो कह रहे थे गलत है. They can always go to them for comfort. मतलब it's not like कि हम बहुत saints हैं और हम उनको डांटते ही नहीं है. Obviously हम डांटते हैं, मैं तो डांटता हूँ. लेकिन जब मैं डांटता हूँ वहाँ पे they can go to their mother for comfort. But if they go in there and they say कि इस तरह डांटा है, then you have that fight. वो गलत चीज़ होती है. I don't believe that should happen.
I've seen that a lot in Desi and joint families also because not everyone respects that boundary and they end up intervening and you cannot even ask them not to. And even when you do, some people don't give up. I mean, there's my dad also. He's gonna give my kid chips before a mealtime, and I've asked him not to. It drives me insane because that kid can starve the entire day, and नहीं खाता वो खाना फिर. तो ये डिसिप्लिन बनाना बहुत ज़रूरी है पेरेंट्स के लिए एंड हमारे लिए मुश्किल होती है देसी कल्चर में ये.
आप दोनों अभी बात कर रहे थे कि मारना नहीं चाहिए, बर्दाश्त करना चाहिए, पेशेंस होनी चाहिए ये सारा. एंड आई रिमेंबर माय मदर टॉकिंग टू अस एंड सेइंग कि जब उनके बच्चे छोटे थे, जब हम छोटे थे, तो उनके ऊपर इतनी चीज़ें थी. अब इन लॉ से आप रह रही हैं, उसका प्रेशर, घर संभालने का प्रेशर, काम का प्रेशर, ये सब का प्रेशर. कहते हैं हमारे अंदर मदीहा उसको पेशेंस नहीं होती है. आप बहुत थके हुए होते हो तो फिर एक दो चपेड़े मार लेते हो. ठीक है, तो आई एम श्योर यू गाइस हैव द सेम प्रेशर एज वेल.
My mom has, I'm not gonna lie, she has asked me, you should maybe try giving him a slap because your child is not listening to you. But again, I've stopped her from doing it herself and I'm not doing it either. But it's really tough to explain to them. But seeing the way we parent our kids, it really inspires them too now. वो देखते हैं, वो मानते हैं इस चीज़ को कि हाँ इन्होंने मारे बगैर बच्चे को समझा दी बात और वो बच्चा बात भी मान रहा है. तो आई थिंक उनके अंदर भी एक रिस्पेक्ट बन जाती है हमारी पेरेंटिंग के लिए.
मैं ये कहने वाली थी क्योंकि मेरी छोटी बहन है, उसने भी ये किया है. शी इज़ नेवर हिट हर चिल्ड्रन. वो मैक्सिमम क्या करती है, वो टाइम आउट कर देती है अगर बहुत बड़ा ऑफेंस है, और उस बच्चे के लिए वो 1 मिनट का टाइम आउट पीना वो 10 घंटे के बराबर है. So and then he listens, but I've noticed that they're very well behaved children without वो ultra disciplinary measures के. Boundaries पता है उनको. लेकिन coming to the work life balance वाला pressure and children and everything, how do you balance that? क्योंकि आप दोनों के दोनों working parents हैं, and I can see that you guys spend the majority of the day with me.
Yes.
I think
I have cats, so I feel guilty about leaving them. I can't imagine के.
So I went through that phase. लेकिन थोड़ा सा जो minimize मेरे लिए हुआ था was that 2-year COVID period work from home. that is it was a very tough time वैसे overall for everyone, and everyone lost like loved ones, but मेरे लिए वो थोड़ा सा if I had to be like a little selfish, तो मेरे लिए बहुत अच्छा time था इस तरीके से कि I was really able to bond with my family and with my kid, because I believe that it's more about the quality of time that you're spending with them rather than the amount of time that you're spending with them. मतलब I could be with her 8-9 hours a day, 12 hours a day, but I'm not paying attention to her, I'm not listening to her, or if I'm not like encouraging her whenever she does like a twist or something, so uska koi fayda nahi hai. That's just like you being there. Sometimes that is also a requirement, you know, just being there. But again, if it's not actively you being entertained by them or intervening in what they're doing, और वो सब चीज़ें आप ध्यान नहीं दे रहे हो, तो फिर I don't think that really matters. But I think especially for women, for working women, it's very hard. I've seen this happen to my wife. I've seen how she's been a full-time, she's been working full-time, and then she comes back and there's like an extra set of, not that कि मैंने कोई वो रखी है, but there's like an extra set of आप कहने additional requirements that are given to women. मतलब I'm somewhat of a very nice husband. मतलब I don't try and you know मैं कभी भी pressurize नहीं करता कि यार ये चीज़ भी करो, ये चीज़ भी करो. I don't really आप कह लें कि वो societal, exactly, because if and I try to do my part as well, but वही चीज़ है कि you cannot really, and it's the reality of it is you can't really replace a mother when it comes to the importance of a parent in a child's life. वो जो होता है ना कि वो बहुत ज़्यादा एक attachment होती है, वो you can't replace that as a father. So it becomes extra.
I don't think you replace either, you know.
I know वो होती है. Thanks for saying that, because वो normally ऐसे कोई कहता नहीं है, लेकिन I believe कि it is harder for women when it comes to that, because it's like a lot of societal pressure as well.
ये थोड़ा पुराना mindset होता था कि fathers don't need to be there, they're earning, वो रात को आते हैं 1 घंटा टीवी देख के सो जाते हैं. Mothers पे बहुत था, you have to quit your job, you have to quit everything you're doing, and बच्चे में थोड़ी सी भी ऊंच नीच आ गई, माँ की गलती है. हर कोई ये बोलता था. No matter how many individuals there are in the house, fingers will all be pointed at the mother. So ये चीज़ है. So I actually took a 2-year career gap for my child, and it was really difficult for me because I love my career and I'm not someone who can choose either, right? So I'm now discovering how to balance both things, and I think corporate slavery is really tough to balance with family life, but I'm getting hold of it. And my child, even though he gets a limited amount of my time, yet again I don't use my phone when I'm with him. I play with him, I hear about his day, and I think it's sufficient for him. He's happy.
So यहाँ पे मैं 2 चीज़ें कहना चाहती हूँ. According to what science discovered, so COVID में discovered कि जो बच्चे पैदा हुए थे या जो
the COVID babies,
the COVID babies,
yeah,
or the babies जिनके वो first 5 years within those COVID years, like they fell within those years and everything, तो वो बच्चे जो है they exhibited faster learning. क्योंकि उनको more attention मिल रही थी, they exhibited faster learning, more advanced learning, they were far more developed mentally, more curious, and that was very interesting as a research, क्योंकि उनके घर में ज़्यादा लोग थे interaction के लिए, social interaction ज़्यादा थी उनकी. तो इस तरह से उन घरों में जहाँ पे लोग ज़्यादा थे, ये वो वाले घर नहीं है जिसमें सिर्फ एक parent है या 2 parent हैं. So that was pretty good. And दूसरा ये about working parents, what they say is कि बच्चे जो होते हैं वो ज़्यादा organized होते हैं और ज़्यादा independent होते हैं, because they're not वही वाली बात है ना कि maybe too much tension is also not good. क्योंकि they need to be a little bit by themselves, they need to use their imagination, थोड़ा सा उनको चीज़ें खुद figure out करनी पड़ती हैं. But you're saying that now both of you spend more quality time, and that's more important.
Yeah, I think
that's what we try to at least.
The aim is especially not to take work home. That also messes up your time with your child.
Do you guys ever feel guilty? Like
mom guilt, yes, a lot of it, because it's 8 to 9 hours away from the child, and that's a big chunk of the day. So you have to really make up for it on the weekend. And I think mom guilt तो होता है, लेकिन ज़्यादा ना आपकी अपनी life affect हो रही होती. Like my social life is being affected now that I'm giving my child and my work more time. So the effects it has on me are more pronounced.
I think it's a little different for when it comes to dads. उनका एक जो आप कह लें कि guilt है ना थोड़ा different है. I feel like it's because again it's थोड़ी सी पुरानी सोच वाली है, but the expectation when it comes to like fathers is more about what or how much they can provide rather than them being there. That's why for the longest time we were able to have our parents and our grandparents, fathers, हमारे grandfathers get away with it because they were providing. So we were like, yeah, ठीक है, as long as they're bringing money into the home, it's fine. वो अगर नहीं भी आते 12 घंटे भी बाहर रहते, 13 घंटे दिन में बाहर रहते, it doesn't really matter because they're the ones putting food on the table. But अब I believe वो चीज़ के साथ साथ वो अब guilt भी आ गया इसके अंदर कि you're not being a good enough father to them. आप provide कर रहे हैं लेकिन फिर भी you don't have an active role in their life. And I've actually felt ये चीज़ कि you can actually see your child's behavior changing if you're being actively involved in their life versus when you're taking a back seat. Because I've seen that wave of emotion change towards you. When I've been uber busy, 12-13 घंटे काम कर रहा हूँ, 14 घंटे काम कर रहा हूँ, and then I come back, तो it's like, okay, ठीक है, आ गया, ठीक है, सोएगा, सुबह फिर चला जाएगा. Exactly. But when I'm invested, or when even after like 12 hours I come back, I spend like an hour or so with them, I could see that वो एक केयर होती है, दूसरी तरफ से भी आती है कि यार हाँ ये टाइम भी दे रहा है, also and वो वाली it's a different kind of feeling that comes across.
So Abdullah, do you now feel mom guilt?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Somewhat.
Mom guilt along with the pressure to provide. I think that's
yes.
Double.
That's a very I am again an advocate of women being able to have a career. वो सारी चीजें उनको definitely होनी चाहिए because as a human being, not just as a woman, if I have the need for it, they have a need for it, right? So वो होनी चाहिए, but ये जो एक ये वाला pressure है ना of the man providing, this can be something that's really
crushing.
Really, really crushing. And वो जो extra pressure है ना, see even if it's like you and your wife, you're just responsible for the other person, but the other person's kind of like an adult, तो यार कुछ नहीं होता, थोड़ा सा बर्दाश्त कर लो and all of that. You can't really do that with your kid. If they need something, they need it.
I think एक और चीज़ ये भी है ना कि society आपको थोड़ा shame feel कराती है, even if अगर आप एक double income household हैं and you say कि we have एक और मेरा जो partner है वो भी कमा रही है, वो भी provide कर रही है, लेकिन वो बार-बार आपको ये याद दिलाते हैं कि नहीं, लेकिन जो तुम कर रहे हो सिर्फ वो ही important है. हाँ वो कर रही होगी. But ये जो है, and if you're unable to do that,
and that happens in a lot of households nowadays. If both partners are coming from a 9 to 5, the woman goes into the kitchen, straight to the kitchen. She cooks, she's mopping, she's washing the dishes, and men don't. So वो चीज़ भी अब change हो रही है in active parenting. And when you become a parent, you find out your own flaws and you work on them. You realize how many things you were lacking, and आप उनको fix करते हैं.
I believe there's like no real formula. मतलब आपको ये नहीं पता कि यार आपने कितना lenient होना है, कितना strict होना है. There's no science to it. It's more like a feeling. कि आपको एक चीज़ लग रही है कि यार as a parent I know कि मुझे ये करना चाहिए. As a parent I know मुझे ये नहीं करना चाहिए. इस चीज़ से रोकना चाहिए या इस चीज़ को जाने देना चाहिए. I think it's more about that.
अच्छा, एक और चीज़ है, we have like such a demanding job, ठीक है, फिर उसके बाद आप लोग घर जाते हैं and आप लोगों ने घर संभालने हैं, घर संभालने के साथ साथ एक और आपको देखना है. When do you get time for yourself?
I think you really build up that.
Or you don't.
You don't initially. You have to be extra mindful of those little pockets out of a day that you can take out for yourself, because if you don't, you'll go crazy. I have a 4-year-old. For the longest time, for the first 2 years, I did not really find time for myself at all, because I had her waking up at 4 in the night as well. And then I had like a job जो कि सुबह मैंने उठ के जाना है जहाँ पे, and then you can't really even stay late. And then weekends maybe you don't really have that much time. So उसके अंदर तो definitely you need to then find pockets of stuff that you used to do as a human being before
you have to find
kids.
Some cracks where you can fill in your
and
time.
then it's also about how you can do some of that while you're at work.
Yeah.
Because you can be a little You can be friendlier with your co-workers. You can be more interested in your job. You can do it in a certain way जो कि आपको as a human being fulfill करे, rather than कि अब बिल्कुल ही कोई आपकी लाइफ ना हो and all that. वो होता है. It is certainly a factor that happens, but you learn how to balance it.
So before having a child, and even before getting married, आपका me time इतना ज़्यादा होता है. आपको ये बाद में realize होता है कि when you don't have time for yourself, I feel like मैं उस वक्त क्या कर रही होती थी, इतना सारा टाइम था, why did I waste it, what was I doing? So that transition from having so much time just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or going for dinners and lunches and coming home at 12 and पूरा दिन बाहर गुजार के, उससे transition मुश्किल होता है. लेकिन आप एक बार कम टाइम में अपने आप को कर लेते हैं मैनेज, like उसी में खुश रहना सीख लेते हैं.
But do you feel guilty, like, taking time for yourself or like going away sometimes? Do you ever go away?
Not in a long time, but so I feel guilty when I need a break from parenting. वो मेरा me time होता है. So I let my husband know, I'm like, I'm not feeling the best. I can't parent for the next hour. I just don't have it in me. I need a break. And I'm privileged. मैं बोल सकती हूँ. 99% of women can't say that without people thinking, oh my God, she hates her kid. Or why did she have a kid? So my husband takes the child, he goes down to my in-laws, and I get a nice hour to myself. And I'm such a better parent when my child comes back.
आपका वैसे भी तो once you get married ना, तो आपका me time वैसे ही थोड़ा सा कम हो जाता है. वो already मतलब if you're at 10 hours तो वो मुश्किल से 2 घंटे रह जाते हैं. And then when you become a parent तो वो 2 घंटे में से भी 15 मिनट रह जाते हैं. So again, it's more about you. And because you've actively made that decision, so then you need to learn how to manage everything, because we're human beings. We can't really be alone on all of our lives. We're social animals. तो वो कोई reason तो होता है ना कि जिसकी वजह से you get married, you want companionship and all of that. So once you do that, you need to learn how to take out time for yourself, and having like a supportive spouse is very important in that, because if you're having your own time, and if your child comes back and they're actively bothering you, not letting you do that, it's because the other parent's not really paying attention to them at that time. So it's very important to have a supportive spouse. Otherwise कोई आपका me time नहीं होता.
अच्छा, all of this really scares me. I'm just saying, क्योंकि अभी with this demanding job that we have, I go home, I have my in-laws, I have my husband, I have my cats. और फिर उन सबको देखते और फिर वो घर है, उन सबको, and this is when I have a lot of support, I have house help. उन सबको देखते फिर जब मेरे पास me time का टाइम आता है ना, उस me time में मुझे सिर्फ सोना है. So I can't imagine if I have a child. मुझे लगता है कि मैं उसमें ही इतना engrossed रहूँगी कि मुझे अपने career को या अपनी ज़िंदगी को या अपनी hobbies को मैं नहीं देख पाऊँगी. So
होता ये है कि your mind and your body adapts, I guess. And secondly, find this fulfillment with your child, and you can survive on lesser me time because of that, because आपको fulfillment घर पे भी मिल रही होती है. Yes, absolutely.
So I'm curious to know a little bit about your thoughts on this as well, ना, because अभी हम काफ़ी देर से बात करेंगे how wonderful it is to be a parent. Yes. Why do you think it's not so wonderful to be a parent?
It's not that I don't think कि बिल्कुल ही wonderful नहीं है, क्योंकि मैं I have people in my family that have enjoyed having kids. ये वो वाले नहीं जिन्हें बस बच्चे पैदा कर लिए और पाल लिए, उनको उसका हर मोमेंट पसंद है. मेरी अपनी बहन है, मेरे मामू मानी है, और वो अभी भी उनके बच्चे बड़े हो गए हैं, तो वो उनकी इवन इंडिपेंडेंट फेस को भी ना बड़ा एंजॉय करते हैं. एवरीथिंग मुझे थोड़ा सा इंटिमिडेट, अदर देन वी टॉक्ड अबाउट अब हमारी क्लाइमेट चेंज एंजाइटी जो भी हैं, लेकिन आई थिंक उस जिम्मेदारी से मैं थोड़ा सा घबराती हूँ, क्योंकि आई डोंट थिंक कि मैं एक अच्छा जॉब कर पाऊँगी. you're responsible for an entire life. How do you make sure that you're doing a good job at it? So I think that's the part that also intimidates me. Maybe I'm intimidated by the attachment. I feel like it makes you feel more vulnerable. I look at my husband, or I look at my cats, I look at people that I love very much, my family, and I feel like if anything happened to them, मैं तो मर जाऊंगी. So I don't think if you create this helpless little thing that is dependent on you and that inspires so much love, जो कि मुझे बताया जाता है कि वो इतना ज़्यादा प्यार है. I've had parents tell me कि देखो हमें partners इतने नहीं अच्छे लगते जितने हमें अपनी औलाद पसंद है.
Obviously.
लेकिन
it's very obvious.
बार-बार कह देंगे.
And it's the same.
So
मतलब it's the same for your spouse as well.
To me इतना ज़्यादा किसी भी चीज़ के साथ attach होना, प्यार करना, वो it's scary. The जिम्मेदारी is scary.
लेकिन मुझे in this time and age मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि if both spouses are on the same page, then why should they even have kids? If they don't want kids collectively, तो किसी और pressure की वजह से नहीं होना चाहिए ऐसा कि they should have to have kids.
That's true also, but that's my reason. That's what I was saying. Okay. It scares me.
Huh.
Kids, like the love for kids scares me.
So it's not like an economic reason, yeah, like an emotional उस तरीके से reason, yeah, more like a rebellious reason भी तो होता है ना कई दफा सब क्या कह रहे हैं तो मैंने नहीं करना है यार
नहीं वो भी नहीं. I've also realized that I do like kids and kids like me as well, and I get along really well with them. Like at the end of the day, I want them to go home. You know, they want to sleep. If I could be a part-time parent, sure. 9 to 5 में कर सकती हूँ parenting. फिर उसके बाद वो घर जाए. ठीक है, पर उसके बाद बस. लेकिन but I also realized कि I like older kids. तो maybe हर किसी का एक temperament होता है. So maybe if I could like somehow adopt a teenager onwards, or like 11-12-year-old. उससे पहली वाली age, I think वो इतनी आप पे dependent होते हैं. Maybe उस चीज़ से मैं घबरा रही होती हूँ.
I think it's but wouldn't that be like because
जबकि सबसे ज़्यादा cute वही वाली age होती है. सबसे ज़्यादा cute.
I think it's more about कि आप उस you can really mold and influence your child at that age because whoever you let's say adopt at teenage के अंदर is going to have all of the आप कह लें कि all of the kinks and वो सारी चीजें जो है ना वो already हो चुकी हुई होंगी.
They're potty trained.
That's the only part of it you want to skip.
It might sound very elitist of me, but you can always have somebody take care of it. Somebody else.
I have a lot of volunteers. I have like an entire family who's like, हम संभाल लेंगे. हमें मौका दो, बस मौका दे दो.
ऐसे ही.
सब बोलते हैं कोई नहीं करता because it's like a day and night process. It's not just like you just show them the potty one day and then go ahead in it and do it. No, it takes weeks for some kids. And रात की अलग training होती है, दिन की अलग होती है. इतने accidents clean up करते हैं.
I think again it's more of a decision that if you can make it either way. If you've decided it, if you have decided not to do it, if you do it as a family, if you do it as like actually want it both as a husband or a wife, or don't want it as a husband and a wife, I think that can work. Otherwise, it becomes like a very even आपके शादी के अंदर इस चीज़ के बहुत मसले हो जाते हैं कि यार आप one of them is saying कि यार हाँ ठीक है we want it, the other party is saying कि नहीं we don't want it, so that in itself becomes something that creates that friction. So वो I think a collective decision होना चाहिए. And if you've decided it, then obviously it's your decision.
I mean, nothing is set in stone. लेकिन ये था कि I see a lot of people जिनको पता होता है पहले से कि हमें तो चाहिए ठीक है. उनकी जो maternal paternal instincts होती हैं वो बड़ी strong होती हैं. उनको बस चाहिए. So I knew that I didn't have that. But having said that, हम दोनों के दोनों we were on the same page. कि हम बिल्कुल भी interested नहीं है. लेकिन at the same time we're also of the opinion कि nothing is set in stone. This is how we feel right now. Maybe a few years later हम थोड़ा differently feel करेंगे.
It's actually good to hear somebody actively make that decision because I've seen a lot of people not make that decision then turn out to be horrible parents. As it might sound as I'm being very judgy or वो सारा, लेकिन I've actually seen people be horrible parents to their children, not paying attention to them, not really caring about what their child's personality is, उनको क्या पसंद है, क्या चीज़ें पसंद नहीं है, वो फैक्टर होता है ना कि यार पल जाएंगे यार.
Emotional burden नहीं.
हाँ मतलब वो वाली चीज़ से बेहतर है कि you decide not to have a child, or if you're unable to, or if you're unwilling to make sacrifices, if you're unwilling to be in a position जहाँ पे यार you're actively supporting them and you're actively providing for them even as a man, तो you shouldn't be doing that.
It is a huge जिम्मेदारी, बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी है. And I think that's थोड़ा सा
मुझे
बात से थोड़ा सा
जो जिम्मेदारी समझे, जो जिम्मेदारी नहीं समझते वो फिर they keep having kids and they don't really care कि वो किस तरह पढ़ लें, किस तरह नहीं पढ़ लें.
I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone. लेकिन if we were ever to have a child, I mean we have cats right now. वो बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी लगती है कभी-कभार. लेकिन obviously we would want to do it properly. तो कोई भी चीज़ halfway, half-ass तरीके से, sorry you can censor that, नहीं करना चाहेंगे. And जब आप बात कर रहे थे, and it's interesting, जब आप बात कर रहे थे अपनी बेटी के बारे में कि कैसे जो है you notice कि अगर आप ज़्यादा सी attention उसको नहीं देते हैं, उससे कैसे attitude बदल जाता है. When I started going back to work full time, and when my husband was also working full time, we would come home, हमारे cats का attitude exactly यही था. I'm not kidding. Literally वो same कमरे में बैठ के पीठ करके बैठे रहते थे हमसे, नाराज.
ऐसे ही मतलब we obviously crave attention, all of us do, and when it's a child they crave attention all of the time. So आप at least 50-60% of the time तो देना वो attention. बाकी we can understand. आपका me time होता है, आपका spouse का time होता है.
हाँ, अगर आप एक तरीके से ये एक तरीके से या मैं एक तरीके से, और ठीक है सही है, लेकिन अगर आपका जो child है अगर वो किसी चीज़ से impact हो रही है, then it's your fault.
ऐसे
Completely
Why would you want that on yourself?
नहीं, but बस देखे ना
We're doing
इसमें
our best. Okay.
if again
I don't feel like I'm ready. How are you guys ready?
मैं आपको जैसा बताऊँ ना, there's never a
The right
perfect
time,
time.
yeah.
There's never the right time because you can't really see the future. You don't really know how everything is going to turn out. If current economic situation का मुझे भी पता होता तो maybe 4 साल पहले मैं भी वो decision ना लेता. But what you need to do is you need to understand that you as a human being can adapt. We're the most adaptable species in the world. हम जाके minus temperatures में भी रह लेते हैं, हम शदीद गर्मी में भी रह लेते हैं, हम बेचारे आप देखेंगे कि सड़क पे आपको मच्छर काट रहे होते हैं, ज़मीन पे सख्त गर्मी में भी लेट के सो रहे होते हैं, एंड देन फिर वो हैं जिनको एसी में भी नींद नहीं आती. सो वी एज ह्यूमन बींग्स आर वेरी अडेप्टेबल, and I believe that for every situation like this, be it an economic downturn, be it a bad emotional state, as long as you have that आप कह लें कि you have the drive to be a better parent or that drive to provide for your child, वो सब चीज़ें आती रहती हैं. There's never going to be like a आप कह लें परफेक्ट सिनेरियो जहाँ पे आप कहें कि यार हाँ अब मैं फाइनेंशियली भी बिल्कुल सेट हूँ और मैं इमोशनली भी बिल्कुल सेट हूँ और मेरी मैरिज भी 100% ठीक है और मेरी वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस भी बिल्कुल ठीक है, एंड देन माई चाइल्ड इज ऑल्सो फाइन.
Of course, you want all of that.
इट्स नेवर गोइंग टू हैपन. वो होता था ना, आपने
सब
देखा होगा
चीज़ें एक साथ नहीं मिल सकती.
कि
There's
वो
always
कॉलेज
a-
के टाइम पे वी हैड दैट मीम ऑफ 3 सर्कल जिसके अंदर लिखा होता था कि यार आप यू कैन हैव स्लीप, यू कैन हैव अ सोशल लाइफ और यू कैन स्टडी वेल. सो आप उनमें से 2 चीज़ें ही हमेशा सेलेक्ट कर सकते हो. यू कैन ईदर स्टडी वेल, नॉट स्लीप एंड हैव अ सोशल लाइफ, और you can have like good sleep and social life and not study.
देखो, amongst all the scary things that I've heard about parenthood, मेरी एक दोस्त है, वो बाहर एक war journalist है. इजिप्ट में थी जब वो रेवोल्यूशन आई थी, सीरिया 3 दफ़ा जा चुकी है ड्यूरिंग द वॉर, इराक भी गई है, एंड देन एट द एज ऑफ 40-41 शी डिसाइडेड कि अब उसने बच्चे पैदा करने हैं. उसकी एक बेटी हुई. उसके फर्स्ट 3 months में लाइक जब मैंने उससे बात की तो शी गोज़ लाइक कि मैं 4 दफ़ा जंगों में गई हूँ, ठीक है, मैं इजिप्ट, सीरिया, इराक जा चुकी हूँ, ये सब कर चुकी हूँ, बहुत मुश्किल था, जान खतरे में डाली, सब कुछ. कहती हैं दिस इज हार्डर.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're responsible for you become responsible for another person now, because with all of those
situations. She was talking about the lack of
situations,
sleep, she was talking about the physical, she was talking about everything. She's like, this is harder.
It most definitely is. It's the hardest thing in my life that I've had to do. And I've done a lot of things in my career, but like I think pursuing a career is much easier than raising a child. Yes, definitely, 100%.
okay, because all of those decisions you're doing for yourself.
I don't have to change this.
If you fail, no, if you fail, then you're failing yourself.
Yeah.
But you don't really have the option to fail your kid.
And the permanent
You do
impact
have that
it
option,
just
but
leaves.
exactly, हम वो सोचते हैं ना कि if I have something that's screwed up in my brain right now, I can maybe trace it back to that exact moment in my past जहाँ पे my heart broke into pieces और वो वाला होता है ना जो तो, and most of those times it has something to do with your parents. And ये बहुत एक unfortunate चीज़ है, but that's just how we're wired.
Have you accepted that at some point your child will be in therapy and they'll be like, मेरे अम्मी अब्बू ने ये किया था?
Definitely.
मैं भी ये चीज़ सोचती हूँ.
Because as wonderful as my parents are, my mother was, there are obviously things that I have issues with, and I associate that with my parents. But that's not to say कि वो मतलब they didn't try their best. We're trying our best. I'm pretty sure कि all of the future issues, Allah ना करे वैसे, लेकिन all of the future issues that my daughter has are going to, revert back to daddy issues. So I'm trying not for her to have as less daddy issues as possible.
I mean, do you have a message for her future self? Like, baby, I tried.
I really tried. I really, really did. And I hope you understand that.
Is there ever a moment that you guys have ever said, maybe हमें नहीं करना चाहिए था, या इतनी जल्दी नहीं करना चाहिए था? Because I think very soon after you guys got married.
I think for me, it was at the very beginning. Because and not after it happened, but while my wife was pregnant, there were times जहाँ पे I was
scared.
Very, very scared. And again, it's not about you're scared for yourself. I was never that. मतलब मुझे कभी ये नहीं था कि यार मैं किस तरह सर्वाइव करूँगा, मैं टाइम निकाल पाऊँगा नहीं कर पाऊँगा. And it's always about कि यार will I be able to raise that child properly? Would I be able to provide for it? Would I be able to be a better parent? Because even though you really love your parents, but you always want to be better. That's what I'm trying to actively be, even be better than my parents. तो वो चीज़ जो है ना वो आपको बहुत ज़्यादा as you mentioned, I'm sure आपको भी डराती है वो चीज़, लेकिन वो आपको डराती है, but then it subsides because you also understand that there are certain things you can't control, and once you have वो थोड़ी सी वो understanding आपके अंदर आ जाती है ना, can't really control everything, तो आप you start being a little more loose in life, and specifically for this.
I guess it's about picking your battles. You can't get everything right. You choose the most important things and you get those right.
There's no science to it, na? So you're going to screw up. As a parent, you're going to screw up. Definitely going to screw up. Be like very hard on yourself. कि यार मैंने क्यों किया? There are times when I'm like overly बहुत ज़्यादा गुस्सा कर जाता हूँ.
Is there a moment you're like, I know this is going to screw you up, लेकिन मैं फिर भी करूँगा?
नहीं, वो mostly बाद में realize होता है आपको क्या, oh crap, ये मैंने क्या कर दिया है. उस moment में नहीं पता because I have that like blind rage. तो obviously मतलब I have this strict rule of not hitting, but obviously आप ऊंचा बोल लेते हैं, गुस्सा कर लेते हैं, but it's more about, and one thing that's very important to know is you should be okay with saying sorry to your kid.
Yes.
If you screw up.
Our parents never did that because they thought their credibility would be reduced in front of us. Right?
But it makes them like.
वो वैसे ही हो गई थी.
वो हम बड़े हुए हमें समझ आ गए.
नहीं, वो उसमें होता था ना कि मतलब जब आपको, हमें तो जब बचपन में कभी मार या डांट पड़ती थी तो हमें सिर्फ आके हमारे सामने खाना रख दिया जाता था कि यार अच्छा खाना खा रहा था. That was their sorry. मतलब आप, they would never admit to being wrong, they would never admit to saying कि यार हाँ ज़रा ज़्यादा हो गया था थोड़ा and all of that. But I feel the opposite. I feel if you really screwed up, you should apologize to your kid because that raises their self-esteem. बहुत effect पड़ता है इस चीज़ पे. The moment you start feeling like यार हर चीज़ ही मेरी गलती है, as a human being, it has affected me myself for a long time. I had self-esteem issues. Because I thought कि हाँ हर चीज़ मेरी गलती है. But वो फिर आप you're putting your child in that victim mentality ना कि हाँ हर चीज़ मेरी ही है and I'm the one who screwed up and all of that. You should not be doing it. If you're wrong, you need to apologize to them and you need to let them know that it's not always their fault. It's very important.
That's very true.
But just to conclude this and just get like a final verdict. Considering कि पाकिस्तान में population जो है वो बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रही है. And this is a major concern that we have.
I love how Madeeha is like taking us back to...
Exactly, we're back. So should people be having kids in this day and age or not?
So what I believe is, what I really like about a lot of couples nowadays is they know themselves enough to know that they don't want kids. I completely respect that. I do not coerce them into, try to convince them कि इतनी beautiful होती है motherhood, आप भी बच्चे कर लें पैदा. If they've made that decision, they're happy with themselves. I completely respect your decision. And only those people should have kids who are absolutely, certain that they're going to love that child and they're absolutely ready and emotionally sane.
Say, Marium, if your child takes care of me, we're putting them in the will. Take a second. ये डराया जाता है ना हमें child-free couples को. तुम्हारा कौन ख्याल रखेगा? And I'm like all of our nieces and nephews.
I'm a very strong believer. Once you're dead, nobody really, you don't really care once you're dead. So mainly that was not the reason for having a kid. I think it's more about, and I do respect the decision of every person or every couple to be able to decide. And I definitely would not be one of those people जो उनको coerce करे या वो करे. But I am a very staunch believer of discourse. You should be discussing all of these things. You should be telling them about their experiences. Maybe they're like two couples, they don't have kids. Maybe the couple that does not want to have kids discusses it with them. And उनको शायद मना ले इस चीज़ पे कि यार वो भी ना करें.
If they're on the fence, but if they're not on the fence, it's a different thing.
So मैं ये बात कर रहा हूँ कि there should always be an open discussion. We should not be making this even a taboo कि यार अच्छा तुम नहीं किया तो तुम्हें क्या मसला भाई, तुम इससे क्यों कह रहे हो कि यार नहीं होना चाहिए. Just like अगर आपके बच्चे हैं तो आप किसी और को क्यों कह रहे हो कि यार उसके बच्चे होने चाहिए.
हाँ नहीं, or for example, if I ever tell people I don't want to have kids, the response I get is you're a monster. So as if कि मैं पता नहीं कि बहुत ही बुरी कोई, like I hate children. I love children. I like them, and I love hanging out with them. And I think they're adorable. They're so cute, and I'm amazing at babysitting. But I do want them to go home to their parents afterwards. ठीक है बस.
Aren't you like a little bit curious to have like a little Madeeha running around?
No,
Like
no,
a little
no. The
Abdullah
word can
running
have
around.
anyone.
There's only one of you.
Maybe an older version. नहीं, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. Like मैंने बहुत तंग किया है अपने parents को. I wouldn't want another version of me. Not exactly. I don't think I could handle it. लेकिन नहीं, coming to your point, अब हम बात कर रहे हैं people who decided not to have kids, people that have kids. Whatever. Do you think people should consciously think about having kids as opposed to just doing it?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
As I mentioned पहले भी ना कि just doing it on a whim, मतलब
उन्होंने कहा तो कर लिया.
कहा तो कर लिया या सोच लिया या अच्छा ठीक है यार कुछ नहीं और करने को चलो, you know, ये वाला भी बहुत पाकिस्तान के अंदर होता है ना
कहा भी नहीं. They've been brought up with the mentality कि तुम लोगों ने शादी करनी है और बच्चे करने हैं. That's all they know. Right?
हाँ
Some couples,
ऐसे है. And especially if you're in a joint family, तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन मार्क हर वक्त आपके सर पे रहता है. And even for like I've seen actively men coming over to other men and saying कि यार को क्या प्रॉब्लम है भाई, क्यों नहीं कर रहे, क्या कोई बहुत ज़्यादा आपने हनीमून पीरियड मनाना है and all of that. ये भी बहुत बड़ा एक प्रॉब्लम होता है ना पाकिस्तान
उसको भी jealousy हो रही है.
Exactly. ये होती है चीज़. So I believe कि आपको you should respect the other person's decision. Should not be वो. But हाँ, if you can have like a genuine or आप कह दें an open discussion about it, and maybe because it's very important to talk about your experience. Maybe that's going to, because it's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing to that could happen to you. Even if you decide not to do it, it's your decision. But if you can not really convince somebody, but if you can tell them about your experience and then they decide to do it again, so it's...
But what I've noticed is that people only give the good side to you. Because they're too scared to tell you about the bad side because they're going to seem like ungrateful parents.
It's the same thing about marriage.
अगर तुम लोग complain कर रहे हो, अरे, there are both sides to, you know, raising a child or just telling you the reality. And the way we just spoke today about how parenthood is, it's unfiltered. And that's how people should depict it. People are just like, no, it's a beautiful feeling and glow आता है आपने pregnancy में, आप उसके बाद naturally feel, motherhood naturally आता है, नहीं आता.
No.
You learn every second of the way you learn.
So I've grown up on seeing those आप कह दें TV shows and movies where like the first time your child holds your finger is the moment that you really feel like a parent and all of that. मेरे लिए तो it happened the first time I saw my child. Before even, but it उसके बाद immediately after that, if you're not actively lovable to the kid, that feeling can go away really fast. Because at the end of the day, we're very, very, आप कह रहे हैं, as human beings, हम बहुत ज़्यादा आप कह रहे हैं selfish हैं उस तरीके से कि if you want to go back inwards और आप अपने ऊपर ही time देते हैं, you can have like 50 kids and not really care about कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं, क्या नहीं कर रहे हैं, all of that.
And there are people that have 50 kids.
ऐसे ही है.
जो record बनाना चाहते हैं.
I actually even respect people who have 6 kids because if they know how much they have in their cup to pour out, right? And if they think they have enough to go around for 6 kids and should be their decision. हाँ, ये भी वैसे चीज़ एक बहुत ज़्यादा है. People have actively been shamed for having more kids. If they want to have like 4 kids, 5 kids, that's fine. That's their decision. It's just like you should be respecting somebody's decision to not have kids. You should definitely be respecting their decision to have more kids.
Population control कैसे होगी फिर?
Population control is something जो कि evolutionary तरीके से हो जाएगी.
It's climate change.
Not really,
COVID.
but देखिए COVID is another factor. वैसे भी if you were to get into the science of it ना, climate change is not really affecting the earth. We're not saving the earth. We're not saving the planet. We're saving ourselves. We need to make this is a very important distinction. The planet has been...
It's going to be there.
It's been there before you. It's going to be there after you. So वो तो it's like आप कह लेंगे ना, we're like a disease and it's trying to get rid of us as human beings. But I think it's more about care. If you do decide to have kids, just try and be good human beings. If you're good human beings, you're going to be good parents. If you're not, तो फिर तो you're
Marium,
not
do you
even.
have
And
any?
after parenthood, I feel it's your responsibility to address whatever issues you already have. Go and get help for them. Don't like just pass them on to your kids. So
If
it
we were
becomes
talking about issues, we'd have like a whole other podcast.
I know,
because
I know.
issues
But I
to
think
यहाँ
this
पे-
is
can
a
go
good
on
note
for-
that we
yeah.
can end it on, where we agree to disagree. And I could see like Abdullah also grilled me as much as I grilled you guys. Like
Not
during
really.
the tables and he was like, "What you tell me?"
I was curious to know, like, because I've honestly, before you have never met somebody who's actively made that decision. So I did want to understand your aspect of it.
And my mother-in-law is very disappointed because most of my friends are people that are child-free that have actively chosen to, and they have similar reasons. Some of them just don't want to, So I think she'll be very happy with this podcast because she'll be like, finally, there are two parents trying to.
But the way you feel about having your first child, I think we also have that pressure to have another because हम पे इस तरह pressure है कि I've been made to feel like a bad mother for depriving my child of a sibling.
So it never ends.
It just never ends.
It never ends, yeah. But matlab, I have all of my family in Lahore, all of my daughter's cousins are there. And before she went to school, I did have this unspoken pressure कि यार ये अकेली होती है, there's nobody to talk to. I'm like, yeah, I'm right there. Her mother's right there. We're talking to her all the time, and she talks to us all of the time. So it's not like कि वो
talks to us all the
deprived
time.
है. Exactly. मतलब it's not like कि वो deprived है कि उसको बिल्कुल ही कोई human contact नहीं मिल रहा है and all of that. But that becomes like a major reason जिसकी वजह से बहुत ज़्यादा आपको as Meri mentioned कि कई दफ़ा it's very unspoken.
Yeah.
It's like कि आपको वो जो है ना वो ताने third party ताने आ रहे होते हैं.
We need to do a podcast on that, Desi Tane.
Yeah,
Desi
wow.
Tane, oh my god.
वो रिश्ता वो आपने सुना था ना कि यहाँ पाकिस्तान में तो जिसकी जो बेचारी कोई डिसेबिलिटी होती है ना उसका नाम पड़ जाता है
हाँ.
कि यार ये लंगड़े काने and all of that. तो ये
Exactly.
पाकिस्तान में तो छोड़ ही दें.
नहीं कभी कभार like my in-laws get into this phase where they feel like everything it was linked to us not having kids. So बारिश ज़्यादा होगी, देखो अगर तुमने बच्चे पैदा कर लेते तो ऐसा नहीं होता.
पाकिस्तान यहाँ पे तो blame game बहुत होती है.
The guilt trip is sometimes really funny. Illogical and funny.
मैं जिस तरह डिप्रेशन वाली चीज़ भी है ना कि यार डिप्रेशन हो रहा है यार you're just not social enough.
Get out there.
हाँ, get out there.
Do something.
You should be happy. You're like, yay, my depression is cured. इस तरह
Thank
नहीं
you for
होता.
that. So the same way, I wanted to talk about how some kids have behavior issues, right? And they're always brought down and blamed on the parents. One of three things is either said. एक है कि भाई इसकी माँ जॉब करती है, करियर बनाती है, इसलिए इसको टाइम नहीं मिलता, इसलिए ये लैश आउट कर रहा है. Number two, they'd be like, take him to a shrine, get him checked. इसके behavior issues हैं, कोई ऐसा मसला है. कोई ये नहीं बोलता कि maybe this child is neurodivergent, maybe this child needs help. तो आई थिंक इस चीज़ की बहुत अवेयरनेस होने की ज़रूरत है बिकॉज एवरी कंट्री हैज़ देयर स्टैट्स अबाउट ADHD एंड ऑटिज्म. हमारे क्या स्टैट्स हैं? हमारे कितने अनडायग्नोज बच्चे और उनके पेरेंट्स जेनेटिकली होता है ना, उनके पेरेंट्स अनडायग्नोज घूम रहे हैं बेचारे, स्ट्रगलिंग विद लाइफ, नो वन टू हियर देम आउट, नो वन, बस सब यही सोचते हैं, ओ यार ये बंदा कितना गलत रेस कर रहा है बच्चे को, या फिर he needs help.
Okay, Marium, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. But having said that, that is a very important issue that you've raised. It's very pertinent, and I would love to have like an entire podcast on this. क्योंकि ये एक extensive topic within itself है.
Yeah.
I do know several parents जिनके बच्चे have been diagnosed as autistic, but if you meet them, it doesn't, but having said that, like autism is a spectrum. You discover it. But I think
it's a very you should definitely be talking to somebody about this on a future podcast if we do continue this stuff, because since my wife is a special needs education teacher and she's been doing it for almost 8 years now, it's sometimes very sad to find out that the parents don't really understand what's wrong, and not really wrong, but what the reason is why their child is not able to cope in school, why their child is not able to perform उस तरीके से, because they don't really have that understanding कि यार it becomes like कि ये नहीं कर रहा. They never go to that point जहाँ पे they don't understand कि ये नहीं कर सकता. So it's very important for them to understand ये चीज़ कि यार if there is always a reason behind it. It's not like your child is dumb, it's not like your child is purposely being stupid या कुछ ऐसी चीज़ है.
they're just structured a certain way. Yeah.
They might be having not really behavior issues, they might be having learning disabilities. So if you don't broach that topic ever, and if you're like oblivious to it कि यार जिस तरह हाँ ठीक है फिर तो you don't really even need to get diagnosed for any medical condition.
But let's definitely have her on when we have this conversation.
For sure.
I think that would be great to have the three of us, the three of you guys.
For sure.
And me.
For sure.
Right.
I don't have a child. I'm not a special needs teacher.
But you're a great conversationalist, so why not?
No, I'm just very curious. That's all
Great.
about people's experiences. So yeah, हमने अभी conversation की है about parenthood. बच्चे करने चाहिए, नहीं करने चाहिए. मैंने इनको grill किया है कि इन्होंने बच्चे क्यों पैदा किए. फिर इन्होंने मुझे grill किया है कि मैंने क्यों नहीं, पैदा करनी है फिलहाल. हमने फिर ये भी डिस्कस किया है कि इनकी क्या एंजाइटीज़ हैं एज पेरेंट्स इन दिस डे एंड एज एंड इसके साथ साथ हम और भी ज़्यादा कॉन्वर्सेशंस करना चाह रहे हैं अबाउट वेरियस एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ पेरेंटहुड. हमारी वेबसाइट पे एक आर्काइव है आर्टिकल्स की अबाउट पेरेंटहुड दैट वी वुड लव फॉर यू टू एक्सप्लोर. Our website is merisehat.pk. Do check it out and do look forward to our next podcast.